thing. He is, a resident expert and a great resource, not only for TCCY, but to the state as well. So, Craig?
Thank
and
you.
If y'all would,
Again,
if everybody would mute your
Again, my name is Craig Hargrow. I work for the Tennessee Commission on Children and Youth. I do basically what they ask me to do. So I just try to support the organization and move things forward. And so I'm a licensed attorney, private practice, worked for DCS for a couple of years. I was a juvenile court magistrate in Montgomery County. Left there and came to the commission to do some child welfare things, such as the Second Look Commission, and just over time have been able to support the organization in the various ways. And one of those is I support the youth justice team for our organization. And so I have some slides, a PowerPoint that we'll be sharing. There we go. And so in addition to what, and thank everyone for your time. So in addition to what Dana talked about and mentioned, I'm going to give some background and try to connect some dots regarding the requirements that I'm going to be talking about. And I'm going to cover several additional requirements from the Juvenile Justice Reform Act of 2018, and that's the statutory language or site for that particular act. So you can go to the next slide. So the Juvenile Justice Reform Act of the federal, because we have a state one and it's named the exact same thing, Juvenile Justice Reform Act of 2018, but I'm going to be talking about the federal act. And so the federal JJRA was reauthorized from the Juvenile Justice and Delinquency Prevention Act, which I think most of us are familiar with. And so that particular act has 4 core requirements. One of the requirements, or 4 core requirements, is the deinstitutionalization of status offenders, and that's simply, except in limited situations, we don't want youth locked up and detained, and so that's just broad overview. Another core requirement is the adult jail and lockup removal. And this requirement focuses on removing youth from adult jails and detention facilities. The third core requirement of the Act is sight and sound separation. And this requirement ensures that youth that are accused or that have already been adjudicated for delinquent offenses or status offenses, or even if a non-offense, which is a legal term, but we don't want any youth having any contact with adult inmates via sight or sound. And so that's another thing that we monitor for. And then the last core requirement is racial and ethnic disparities. And this requirement focuses on helping states address and eliminate any racial and ethnic disparities within our youth justice system. And so when the act was first, so Tennessee is a part of that act. We received money through the Juvenile Justice Reform Act of 2018, which means we have to comply with these 4 core requirements. If we're not in compliance, then certain penalties apply. Go to the next slide. And so the Juvenile Justice and Delinquency Prevention Act was reauthorized, and that was an incredible step forward for youth and families throughout the nation. And so in the last decade or so since the JJDPA was reauthorized, there have been numerous innovations to the field of youth justice. And so the new legislation affects or reflects the science that's related to adolescent brain development that we know more about. It really enforces and encourages the use of evidence-based programs, which is nothing incredibly new. It really focuses on the fact that there's evidence that shows us that communities are better equipped to reduce crime and improve outcomes for children through community-based programs. goes to almost in every case. And so the new act focuses on that as well. And so there's been some changes, and the underlying impetus for the changes are really trying to make sure that youth have every resource necessary so that they can become productive citizens within our nation. And so the other thing that is incredibly important is the new act, the JJRA, really takes into account the need to address the trauma that many of our youth that are in the youth justice system have faced. We know that a lot of times that our youth could be, classified as delinquent and dependent and neglected. And so the act really takes into account that there's a need to address that trauma as well. And so now I'm going to go to the next slide. And so now I'm going to take a look at some of the key provisions of the JJRA, some of the things that are required of states to do to continue to receive funding. And so one of the things that states who receive funding through the JJRA, which is under the Department of Justice, says that we need to be working on the elimination of the use of restraints on pregnant youth. And so the JJRA requires states to develop a plan to eliminate the use of restraints on known pregnant juveniles in secure detention and correctional facilities. And it's during labor, during delivery, and during postpartum recovery. We have to have a plan and implement, and should have implemented already, but still working on it. Make sure that known pregnant youth are not restrained during those times: labor, delivery, postpartum. And then there's always the exception, unless there's a credible, reasonable grounds to believe that the detainee presents an immediate harm to herself, to staff, or to someone else. In addition to eliminating the use of restraints during those particular times of a known pregnant juvenile, the Act also says that we should be eliminating the use of abdominal restraints, leg and ankle restraints, wrist restraints but behind the back, and 4-point restraints on known pregnant juveniles at any time, whether it's, it doesn't have to be during labor, delivery, or postpartum, just any time. Again, unless there's some credible, reasonable ground to believe that the youth presents an immediate harm to herself, to staff, or to others. So that's a change that is taking place within the state. Next slide. And so the Act also focuses on some additional programs that we could work on and work through in this state. Funding is available for, and one of which is legal representation for juveniles. Our AOC does an incredible job with that. One is including juveniles, or informing juveniles regarding the opportunity to expunge their records and sealing those records and making sure that they have access to do those things. Addressing the needs of girls in or at risk of entering the youth justice system. And a lot of the data suggests that girls are the fastest growing population within the youth justice system. And then, of course, compliance monitoring, which our organization does, and providing technical assistance. Next slide. So we touched on this last time. I'm just going to go over it again. I heard Jerry say there were some new folks. And so there's a change in the valid court order exception. So again, the statute or the Act says DSO or status offenders should not be detained unless they have violated, no, there's a couple exceptions, but the one I'm talking about is unless they violated a valid court order. And so, but there's some changes in the requirements as they used to be 2 years ago. So specifically, now if a youth has been taken into custody for a violation of valid court order, then within 48 hours of that youth being detained, the court, if the court determines that that's an appropriate placement, it has to be a secure, if it's a secure detention or correctional facility, then the court must issue a written order setting forth a specific factual circumstances regarding the violation. I don't think that's anything very, very new. It's my understanding that most of our courts have been doing that anyway. So what is a little different is the placement. If you have a DSO or status offender and they violate a valid court order, the placement for that individual cannot exceed 7 days. Can't be detained more than 7 days, and the court can't renew that same order or extend that same order. So at the end of 7 days, they can't come back to court for a quick hearing and say, Craig still, given the circumstances, Craig has to remain in the secure detention facility. And so 7 days is the maximum. And then you can't renew it. So if you have another violation, it has to be based on a totally separate order. And so you can't use the same DCO to keep a child in detention more than 7 days. And then there's a requirement that states that we need procedures in place to make sure that our status offenders are not being detained longer than 7 days, or the length of time that's ordered by the court, whichever one is shorter, so maximum of 7 days. Next slide. And so this is the one that Dana mentioned, and this will go into effect at the end of this year, December of this year. So we need to start working on and thinking through how to make this happen. And so the new JJRA extends jail removing sight and sound requirements, keeping youth awaiting trial for adult criminal court out of jails and lockups, and to ensure there's a sight and sound separation. And here's part of what that means. So now juveniles awaiting trial or some other legal process who have been transferred or who are treated as adults for purposes of prosecution in criminal court, and they're housed in a secure facility, again, can't have sight and sound, and can't be held in an adult facility unless the court finds after a hearing, and then there's something in writing that it is in the interest of justice that child remain in an adult facility. And so if a child's been waived to adult court for their adjudication of a matter of felon, whatever it is, just because they're waived doesn't mean that they automatically go to an adult facility. There has to be another hearing that says this youth, it is in the interest of justice that this youth be detained pending final hearing or some other legal process, can be detained in an adult facility. And so judges have to consider several things. I'm just going to tick off a few of them. And so some of the factors to determine whether or not it's in the interest of justice is the age of the youth, the physical and mental maturity of the youth, previous, the youth's history regarding previous acts, and other. The other one I want to mention is the ability of the adult facility to make sure that there's no sight and sound separation and that the youth is receiving what that youth needs. And so, in addition to that, so if the court makes that determination that it is in the interest of justice to permit a youth to be held in any jail or lockup for adults in any adult facilities, then the court is required to hold a hearing at least every 30 days to make sure to review whether it is still in the interest of justice to permit that youth to continue to be held and have no sight and sound within that adult facility. And so youth gets transferred, waived to adult court. Court makes a determination, this child, it is in the best interest, not best interest of the child, but it's in the interest of justice that this child be held in an adult facility pending trial or pending some other legal process. Once that child is in that adult facility and the court makes that determination, and so after that, every 30 days after that, that youth has to come back before the court, and the court has to make the determination once again that it is still in the interest of justice for the youth to remain detained in the adult facility. And then finally, it says that youth shall not be held in any jail or lockup for adults or permitted to have sight and sound separation with adult inmates for more than 180 days unless the court, again, in writing, makes a determination that there's good cause for an extension or the youth waives the limitation with advice of counsel. And so even after you've been checking on the youth or the court's been having these hearings every 30 days, what the new JJRA states is after 180 days, then the court has to make a determination that the court's going to extend that time period. And so the thought is there's no reason for a youth to be in an adult facility for more than 6 months or 180 days, waiting for trial or waiting for legal process. And the trial needs to have happened, and determination needs to occur. The legal process has to happen, or maybe it's think about letting that youth spend his or her time while still a youth, spend his or her time in a youth facility. And so those are, and the last slide, this just says any questions. And so those are some of the major changes that are in place and we're working on and are coming down the pipe. And so I will pause and respond to any questions as best I can. And let me preface this before I frustrate anybody. So the last time I presented, I was supposed to present on the transfer piece as well. And I didn't because we didn't have good direction from the Office of Juvenile Justice and Delinquency Prevention from the federal level regarding how some of this is going to work out. And we still don't have that. We're still waiting on that. But I thought it was important to at least share it with everybody so that we can start thinking through it and didn't want to catch anybody off guard. And so I will be quiet and respond to questions.
And you should be able to, if you can't, then you can also type in the chat box as well, and I'll monitor it.
I actually have a question. If we have a case where we have a young man who was a minor at the time the offense was committed, and he's now over 18, but he was charged as a minor, we're going to, of course, start in juvenile court. But if he's transferred, being that he's already an adult, does that apply to that case?
So my short answer is I'm not sure. I don't think it does, but that's one of the points of clarification that we've asked for. When I say we, just not the state of Tennessee, states throughout the nation, and we're trying to get clarification regarding that. But just thinking through it, it's the change is in place to prevent youth from being in adult facilities, and I would think that once they turn 18 or whatever the legal age is in whatever state they're in, that it would no longer apply. So that's my initial thought.
Thank you. That's what I was thinking too, but I want to make sure. Thank you.
So Craig, I have a quick question. So there's a hearing to waive the child to adult court. And then there needs to be another hearing to place the child in an adult facility due to best interests of the community or whatever. Is that right? So there needs to be 2 hearings for them to go to be placed in an adult facility, essentially?
Yes, essentially. And so
Okay.
what I've seen in our jurisdiction when I was practicing, and some through working with folks now and in other jurisdictions, that those hearings really take place almost the same time, or sometimes during the same setting. But I think to provide the youth due process, it's a good idea to have those separately. And so the court makes determination, yes, the youth is going to be transferred. Then the attorney for that youth may need additional time to get together facts and arguments and witnesses to say why the youth should stay in a youth facility pending trial.
Would the circuit court judge have those hearings instead of the juvenile if they've been transferred to adult court? So at that point, will the 30-day ones be done by the circuit court judge?
Yeah, that's my understanding. Anything else? So if you have questions, I know I went through it pretty quickly and you have a full agenda. So if later on today or next week or next month or whatever, if you have questions, don't hesitate to reach out to your contact, Dana or Gwen or Jerry or whomever, or you can reach out directly to me. If you reach out to me, please send me an email. I respond to email quicker than I respond to voice messages. So send me an email, and I'll get back with you just as soon as I can. And I think that's it for me then.
Thank you, Craig. We appreciate it.
Good deal. I appreciate the opportunity. Y'all have a good meeting. I'm gonna try to finish some stuff out. Take care.
Thanks, Craig.
And I just want to follow up when we get, some guidelines and written information that Craig and his team's working on at the central office, and that we have had input in, and of course the input that comes from JJDDP, we will make sure that we will get that to you as well. We'll get you as many written documents as they give us, that it's not just something that you have to hear, but you can also have a concrete product once we, get information from the feds, which Vicki and them can tell you that sometimes that's, slow in coming and difficult. And I know they have had some leadership changes up there, so I'm sure that they're, trying to get it all together.
And next on the agenda was Amy. We're going to push her toward the end though, because she has ended up in a budget hearing this morning, so she's running a little bit behind. She still hasn't joined us yet. So Dana, do you want to talk about our juvenile justice directory that we've been working on? Unmute, friend.
Just that. Okay, I'm so sorry. Our directory, our West Tennessee, juvenile justice resource directory, we always want to take a few minutes and, encourage you to, if there has been changes in your office, if there is somebody that needs to be added, if you could get that information to Jerry and we will make those changes. And then after this meeting, once we have the opportunity to make those changes, we will get that directory back out to you. I know we have some Shelby County individuals on our call today, and we really appreciate that. We will make sure you see the directory as well if you have not seen it. And if you would like to be added to that directory, you're more than welcome to. The Tennessee Council used to own Tennessee Juvenile Court Services, but the council judges used to produce like a directory of all the juvenile courts and detention centers and just other information. Well, over time that had gotten kind of put aside, and so we just felt like that was something that would benefit, if you needed to call the detention center in Shelby County, or if you needed to call another YSO because a kid showed up in your county, you would have a ready access to that. So we do want to keep that as up to date as possible. So if y'all will always, send Gwen, Jerry, or I that information, we'll be glad to either add you, change it, or do whatever. And like I said, we'll get that back out to y'all in another week or so once we've made the changes. So, Jerry, you want to talk about, well, I'll talk about the West Tennessee Coalition on Homelessness. There is a coalition on homelessness, and Tammy Yosich, who works for Asphalt Recovery, but it came out of the work around the homeless. And they created a county by county directory for, I think it's all of West Tennessee plus a few counties along the river in Middle Tennessee. And it is very well done, very well done. And Tammy, encourages, we send that out a couple times a year and say, do you want to be added? Do you have changes or whatever? She doesn't usually put names, professional names. She just lists a lot about the agency and contact and that kind of stuff. But Jerry and I have shared that numerous times. But if you have changes, we've sent that out several times, but let us know, and if you don't have that great resource, let us know and we'll make sure you have a copy of that as well. Jerry, you want to
She updated that in January and ended up, Dana, I, and Southwest Development District all shared it. And she ended up with an overload of about 200-300 updates all at once. Just keep in mind that she does this for free. This is a complete volunteer heart thing for her. She wants it done, but it takes her a little time because she's got a full-time job. And isn't she still a grad student, Dana? She's still working on a degree.
I don't know if she's finished or not, but she actually works for Asphalt Recovery Center too.
So just be aware that if you do have an update, it may take just a little bit, but she's still working on some updates from January till now that she got when we first sent it out the first of this year. So those updates will happen. It may take just a little bit of time. Another thing.
Jerry, when you finish 211, will you ask who's on the phone so we can record that as well?
Yeah. One was Chauffeur.
Yeah.
I don't see the other callers now. They may have already jumped off. I see still Chauffeur may still be. I think he was caller 2. Okay, so and let me see if I can share this real quick on my screen. Yeah. Okay, so things change around when I do it. Can y'all see it? Can everybody see it? This is the West Tennessee 211 hub. This is a United Way West Tennessee project that Matt Marshall has been working on. And this isn't just another resource to let y'all know about. It's currently being added to right now because it just went live, if I remember correctly, the end of February. So agencies are constantly adding right now. You can get your agency added. So at the end of this, when we send out all the information, we can send you Matt Marshall's email as well too, if you want to be added to this, but it's just another resource to be aware of. I'll put the link in the chat box. So everybody can see the link and you can pull it up if you want to. Just be aware that it's another resource that's available to you. It's got a little search bar here where you can search your agency by name, or you can also search by category in those little app looking icons at the toward the bottom, simply by the category of what you're looking for. Like if you needed a food bank or something like that to help your kids or your families. So it's just another resource, but you can also be aware that you can be added to this as well. So that's just another added piece. Matt Marshall's been working on it really hard. It looks really nice. It's also available by phone, so you can pull it up through your phone as well, through your web browser. So any questions on either one of those resources from us? And we'll get you, the directory was added into the email that I sent out, but we can send it out again. And I'll send this link out as well as Matt's email. So if any of you want to figure out how to be added to that, you can do that. And I still don't see Amy logged in yet. I still see caller 2, which is show for anybody that is new.
So the other caller was Delcia Stokes from Shelby County DCS.
Okay. And I think I've got everybody else down. So Amy wanted to talk about what everybody's learned since we've been in lockdown. So this is our discussion time. I'll get it started for her. Maybe she can jump on in just a little bit. So Amy was curious, and it was a discussion she posed about. Heard somebody. So it was a discussion that she posed about what everybody's learned since COVID, because everything's changed so much this year. Just like we have been doing our roundtables that everybody loves to jump on and come visit in Jackson usually. Everybody likes to do that, but right now we've been doing them for right at a year now, virtually. So if there's any discussion around that anybody wants to jump in and let us know how things have been going in the courts, how I know Melissa at Fayette County's been doing virtual. Anybody want to talk about what's been going on and what's been changed, what's for the good, for the bad? Open discussion now.
Well, I'd like to know how many of the courts are using Zoom and technology like that did not use it prior before, and how's that working?
We've done it, and it's worked pretty well. It enabled us to continue to go through and have cases instead of such a backlog, because now we are back in person. But I mean, it worked well for us, and we're still doing foster care review board that way too.
Oh, okay. Any other
Darwin
courts
and
use
Memphis have been
Zoom?
using Zoom and are continuing to use Zoom for the detention hearings right now. And then we've been doing foster care review board by Zoom as well.
So are there changes that you all think that you'll be keeping once, we get back to normal? You're muted, Melissa.
I will continue to do my traffic citations. The judge and I talked, we have several tickets. A lot of times the children are from Memphis or Arlington, and, it's just easier to do a Zoom with them instead of them having to come all the way down to court for a traffic citation. And I just email them the informal adjustment agreement. And during the Zoom meeting, they have it. I go over their rights and the option of the informal, and more than 90% of the time they choose to do the informal adjustment agreement. They sign it, email it back to me, and it keeps them from having to come miss work, come down here. They can just get on that Zoom meeting, take 15-20 minutes. It's just a better process, and they're not sitting here all day waiting to see me over a traffic citation.
So the families have seemed responsive. They're liking that better too.
Mine have. They've really liked being able to just get on there and handle it without driving all the way down here, especially when they're from Memphis or another county or something.
I was speaking for Shelby County. We are currently having our hearings on Zoom, and that has been working pretty well. We also have recently started within this past year of doing the CANS assessment. That has been somewhat of a challenge on Zoom because a portion of it you're talking with the child and another portion you're talking with the parent. So sometimes that's a little difficult because they're sometimes in the same room. So with that, it's a little bit better I think, to do the assessments in person. However, with some cases, we have been able to do them successfully via Zoom or teleconference.
And that worked well for y'all, Dr. Elion?
Yes, yes, especially for the court cases. Yes, it has been very good.
Anybody else want to chime in?
For the courts who have not used Zoom, how backlogged are you? I mean, you're talking a month or 2 months, 6 months, a year? Carroll County, I'm just going to start calling counties. But what about Carroll County? What about y'all? Jeannie, Brian, Ryan? Crickets. Okay, what about Crockett County?
And remember, y'all can still type in the chat box too. If you can't unmute, you can still type in the chat.
Brian,
Carroll
what you gonna
County,
say?
I mean, Carroll County's pretty much caught up.
Oh, great. That's good to hear.
Amy's joined us now. I see her. Amy, we started your discussion about what's changed in courts. Do you want to chime in? And now I see her internet. She's trying. I think she's trying to connect. Yeah, I think she's trying to connect via her car.
I see Chief Bridgeforth with Shelby County on here. Have you had any, you want to talk about any of the changes for the detention center in juvenile court?
Good morning. Of course, we've gone virtual with all our court services, as well as virtual school. The children have interacted and received it well. We haven't had any problems. We've also offered volunteer services via Zoom. We still have our community partners that are working with us, with our youth in programs such as Tennessee Shakespeare Company, where they are still learning how to writing, creative writing, poetry, and things of that nature. We still have our program manager that works along with our community partners that are teaching mentorship. They're teaching financial services. We have a lot of volunteers that were really, really concerned when they were not able to come in person, and they were ready to do whatever it took for them to share their services with us. So we have a lot of volunteers that are working with us to do virtual classes and training with our youth. And our youth are very receptive. So this right here has not slowed things down in Shelby County, in our detention center, via courts. Our courts are operating, our population remains like in the 40s when it was in the 70s and 80s prior to pre-COVID. So this has really helped us continue our care and our services for our youth and keep them engaged. So we really have taken advantage of the opportunity to look for alternatives to provide our services virtually. And like I said, we've been very successful in just continuing our activities and creating a positive environment for our youth. Thank you.
And do you think that there are a lot of those ways of doing business that you'll maintain, like with the volunteers?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
Via
Could you say
Zoom?
that?
Do you think that you'll maintain some of the services via the volunteers using Zoom or other aspects of the court using Zoom?
Oh, yes, that would definitely be an alternative that we would look to, because it's easier. It's not time consuming for a person to have to come into the area, of course, and walk to an area and set up. We just have the children in the space, and we have the technology to provide the services quicker according to our daily schedule, and get a lot more activities done throughout the day in a timely manner. So I really do believe that we will continue the virtual alternative for services provided by our volunteers. Yes, ma'am.
That's great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Amy, you with us now?
Yes, I'm very sorry. I just came out of a county budget meeting, county budget hearing, and then got in the car, and I guess it switched from the Wi-Fi in the building to the jetpack and completely lost everything. And so I'm very sorry. I apologize for getting on late.
So do you want to add to the discussion that was your idea?
No, I just pretty much want to listen to everybody else's ideas. I think I just from the little bit I was able to hear before I lost my connection, we're doing a lot of the same things. It's we'll continue to use the virtual platforms for times when it's just physically difficult for people to get to the same place, to avoid rescheduling meetings and rescheduling hearings and all that kind of stuff. We'll definitely continue to do that. But yeah, I'm interested to see what else everybody has discovered that they're going to keep around even after we go back to whatever normal looks like.
Thanks, Amy. Anybody else want to share? Or if you have any other concerns or anything, go right ahead. We've got a little bit of time for discussion about anything else too. And remember, you can still use the chat box too.
I was going to say, this is Stephen from Tipton County. I know one of the biggest benefits we've had is getting forensic evaluations and psychosexual evaluations. We're now doing those in my office. And so having the kids come just to the office to use our equipment and stuff and do that, virtually, instead of having a family trying to figure out a way to drive to Jackson or drive to Dyersburg to have this exam done. They're able to use it in our office. So I've had discussions with Pathways about us keeping that option available in the future.
We found the virtual to be particularly helpful with Foster Care Review Board because a lot of our volunteers with Foster Care Review Board are retired or they're older people, and they were particularly concerned about the COVID, which they should be. And but doing it virtually saved us from being months and months behind on our Foster Care Review Board hearings, and the AOC was supportive in us continuing to do them that way. So that may be something that we continue to do at least some of the time is Foster Care Review Board via Zoom or whatever tools we have.
So it sounds like it helped the backlog from folks not getting too backlogged for the most part. Back to Dana's question earlier, is anybody still backlogged, or did Zoom help everybody out, or virtual or other means help everybody out?
On the delinquency
Tiffany,
side, anyway, our judge, our the attorneys who do our indigent defense, for the most part, were not in favor of doing their cases by Zoom. They just didn't feel like their clients would get the same representation. So we had a lot of backlog on the juvenile justice side, or excuse me, youth justice side. I'm still learning to change my terminology. On that side, it didn't help us much, but I think that the court did see some benefit from it in we have a general sessions judge, so she does civils and probates, and along with all of the juvenile stuff. So I think they did more on the DNN side via Zoom, not so much on juvenile justice, and of course, child support just backed up forever and a day. So, but I think we're within about 3 weeks of having our backlog on delinquency matters cleared.
And your Safe Baby Court's still virtual, isn't it, Amy?
Yeah, Safe Baby Court stayed on track. I think they went virtual early on and stayed that way throughout the pandemic, but they're going to stay that way, I think, for a bit longer because with the courthouse has renovation going on, and there's parts of the building you can't go into right now, including the part where they usually have their court. So they'll probably stay virtual until that construction gets cleared.
Somebody started to answer a while ago.
I was just going to say Tipton County we're still backlogged, but that's just because of lack of staff. So we're running general sessions court plus, trying to get civil court started back up, and we're assisting in circuit and chancery as well. So we're just all over the place, but we're still probably backed up probably around between 2 and 3 months.
In Madison County, we leaned pretty heavily on diversions and informal adjustments on delinquency matters. Anything that we could feasibly handle that way, we at least tried to do it that way first, and that really helped us tremendously. If we hadn't done that, we would still be 4 or 5 months backlogged easily. But we resolved a lot of stuff that way.
Hey, this is Lyndon Mitchell from White, Van Buren County. I'm over in Eastern Tennessee. I appreciate having the opportunity to join in with you guys today. Christy Paling invited me, so maybe we can try to replicate what you guys do over on our side of the state. But I think we've done a lot of the same things you've done. We've done Foster Care Review Board with Zoom. To be honest, I like it better. Our caseworkers had gotten to where they were calling in all the parents. And to be honest, I hate it. I hate the call-ins. It's hard to hear. I don't feel like that's a good review. When I started work, I probably started work before most of y'all were born. None of our clients had phones. And now my clients all have internet capabilities and can Zoom. But for delinquency, we did the informal adjustments and the diversions, which kept us pretty much up. We've got 3 or 4 trials that we just couldn't do, but we're not that far behind. And our DCS attorney did a great job setting up Zoom and WebEx to try and keep up to date. I know he's a little behind, but all in all, he was really aggressive in the technology. But it's our general sessions court that we're going to be struggling with for a long time. It's going to take a while for general sessions criminal, but I don't have to worry about that. I just have to see it in the hallway. But I appreciate what y'all are doing. Some of us in my area, we used to meet in person every quarter, 3 or 4 of us. But, you know, in the last year, we've not been able to do it. So I really like this idea, and I appreciate y'all letting me be a part of it.
We're glad you joined us. And, you know, we've always had the opportunity to meet in person, but, you know, moving forward, you know, we'll probably look at a hybrid model for those that can come in and meet. You know, it's good to see people's faces, and for Jerry and I, it's all about the hugs. And, but also we know that if you are in court and can't make the drive in, because, you know, we try to pick one central location, it does take time. So yeah, so, I mean, you know, we'll change the way we do things as well. And,
But I know several of our folks are ready to get back in person and be in one room and eat lunch with me and Dana again too.
and we want the Memphis Shelby County group, you know, we've talked to Gwen, but, you know, if y'all would like to continue being a part of this group, I mean, we welcome you. And you can talk to Gwen and see, you know, is it beneficial or was it just a one-time thing for y'all as far as information? But I do know not a lot of counties, but some counties have been able in the last, you know, few years to access the detention center down there, the services that Shelby County provides as well. And so, you know, we don't care who joins us. You know, we're good.
And topics. If you have ideas for topics for our discussions, we try to do them quarterly for the June, and Amy may be able to give us an update on the mini conference coming up in June with that LaTanya's been planning. It's coming up in June, so we probably won't do one in June. We'll probably wait till August or September for our next one. Amy, any updates on the mini conference? I know it's going virtual this year.
Yeah, just that we need presenters. If you know of something that you'd like to share with the group, please let us know. We're I know everybody is weary of online trainings and Zooms and all that kind of stuff, but we're really trying to get different, interesting, new, innovative stuff that you haven't already heard about 100 times. So if you have a new idea or something you'd like to hear about, please do let us know, and we'll find somebody who can come and speak on that.
Dana's got an idea for you, Amy. She'll probably let you know on it as soon as she can.
Wonderful. Thank you.
So
And
any
we've
other
had various speakers, you know, it can be for mental health, it can be for, you know, it doesn't matter, you know, anybody that can bring something to the table that would help you to have more knowledge or to do your job easier or better, or a resource out there that you wasn't aware of, you know, let Jerry and I know as well, because, you know, we want to make sure that we are bringing you what you need and want. One thing I did want to mention is that Governor Lee did put in millions of dollars into the Youth Mental Health Trust Fund, and that is for any youth that needs mental health services, and it is all free. It is free. So I know a lot of youth, and there's a lot of discussion and conversation about just the effects of COVID on mental health. And I know our youth have had a really stressful year with being in school, out of school, you know, family members maybe having contracted COVID or known someone that passed away, or maybe they've been very sick themselves, or they can't socialize with their friends like they want to and have been. So, I mean, they are experiencing mental health and they are seeing an increase in mental health among youth. So just know that that resource is there. Contact your local mental health center and they can guide you through the process. And we will try to have that's another topic. We'll have a speaker. We'll get speakers to talk about that as well.
Yeah, and that's not income-based either, so be aware that that's completely free for all. That it's not it does not go by income. It even works with kids that already have insurance, and some of their insurance may not cover certain things like extra counseling and stuff like that. So I'll try to send that flyer out. There's a link, and I think Sean's also sent me a list of by providers in our area too, so I can send that. I have to look for it on my computer. Any other final discussions? Because one thing Dana and Gwen and I don't do is we don't keep everybody hanging on the line. We know y'all are busy people.
Gwen?
Well, I just wanted to, and you already mentioned Juvenile Court Services Association mini conference. That's going to be June 3rd and 4th, and again, it's going to be virtual. The West TN mini conference will also be virtual, and that's going to be May 5th through 7th of this year. And our next YSO roundtable meeting will be, as Jerry alluded to earlier, either in August or September. We'll let you know. And for my folks in Memphis, I guess Dana had indicated if you all want to participate, I know the drive to Jackson would be prohibitive for most of you, but if there's a way that we can do it virtually, or if we're still just doing it virtually at that point, and you want to join in, just please let me know. Or if you know other people who you think might benefit from it, please let me know that as well. We wanted to get you on here today, especially because of the information that Craig had to provide. And if there's no other discussion, as Jerry said, we're going to let you go. We do appreciate you all being here so much, and we appreciate all the work that you do and have continued to do under horrible circumstances, and you've made the best of it. And we really appreciate that you've done that. Again, this is being recorded. It may be on the TCCY website. If not, we'll get in touch with you and get that recording to you in the event that you need to share Craig's information directly. And so again, thank you all for being here. And until next time, y'all take care.
Bye, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye.